We have a guest for today's video. Hey Cody, wanna say hi? Wanna say hi, you little crazy doggy? He's 7 months old. He's a bit in his like nipping stage, but buddy, hello. Okay, we're out. What am I doing? What the fuck is this? Okay, what's up, y'all? My name is Arnold, and I recently graduated Yale with a double major in theater and studies and poli-sci on a full ride. And if you or you know anybody who wants to get into Yale or a top school, Ivy League university, whatever dream college you have, hit me up. I have my email down below, arnold.setiatti@aya.yale.edu, as well as some other websites and resources. Email me, hit me up for paid services, maybe like a free chat or whatever, just let me know. So this video sounds very conceited, but essentially it's the harsh realities of being an overachieving Yale grad, and I think that this is something that could be applicable to a lot of people who are, either working really hard, who have a chip on their shoulder, who consider themselves overachievers. And ironically enough, if you are an overachiever, usually you don't identify yourself as one, but through talking to friends or family or other people, they tend to think that you're an overachiever. Once again, this is just going to be like a sit down video. Grab your bubba tea, drink, whatever, and like listen to this on the side while you're cooking or doing whatever pleases you. Yes. So for context, this is super important. I come from a first generation low income background. So both of my parents, they immigrated during the 90s from Indonesia to America, to the East Coast, and they had pretty much little to no connections, money, career advancements, pretty much nothing. Not only that, but they also ended up having 6 children. So, supporting a huge family both in the States and abroad while having no connections or any prior experiences in the country was definitely very tough. So I was born and raised in Connecticut, and honestly I was a pretty dumb kid, but at around the age of 9 to 12 I actually moved to Indonesia, and then I kind of had to start from step 0 there because I didn't know the language, I didn't have any connections there. So essentially I had to rebuild myself by learning all of these academic subjects in a different language while also learning the different language and all of the other coming of age aspects that come with being a kid. So it was definitely a very formative time, and when I was 12 I moved back to Connecticut, and I've been in Connecticut ever since, before moving to LA, of course, which is recently. And in Connecticut, I grew up in Bridgeport, which I love my hometown. It's multicultural, diverse, but if we're gonna be real here, it is a lower income area. It's definitely been developing in the past few years, but the schools that I went to were all public schools, didn't have that much resources, underfunded. Not only that, but my parents were also separated, so I was just living with my dad and siblings in the States. So it was definitely hard navigating everything because, I'm coming back from Indonesia in like a lower income area. My family is also low income, and they also don't know much about the academic system. But it definitely put a chip on my shoulder because, my mom and dad, luckily enough, instilled really great religious and moral values in me to just, like smile, be humble, do your best work, and just be kind to other people. It's also just definitely, I feel like, an Asian thing for sure, just like put your head down and work really hard. So middle school was fine, and high school was also really great, where I was able to be the lead in the actors for the student plays and became class president, school governance council president, a part of National Honor Society, became valedictorian, and all these other things. This led to me getting an early full ride to Yale at the age of 16, and during my time at Yale was also amazing, where I was able to study abroad in England and study Chinese and have all of these amazing opportunities as a theater and poli-sci double major. Once again, surely from the bottom of my heart, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but I just think it establishes great context for this conversation of, because I really want to offer an honest perspective on what this journey has been like mentally. So here's some things that people don't talk about if you're an overachiever and you graduate from a top school, or heck, even if you're just like a hard worker. And generally speaking, I'm a positive person, but I think it's important to look at some of the harsh realities of the situation. So for the first thing, I think that graduating from a top school, or getting into a top school, or getting these awards from an early age, it makes you very privileged and entitled. Once again, this is my own personal experience, but I think maybe people could relate. For example, I was one of the first kids in my hometown to get into an Ivy League, and doing well in high school, especially at a young age, where there's so many things happening in school, like socially, on an extracurricular level, also at home, and your brain is still developing. A lot of these things can get in your head. So now that I'm in post-grad, to an extent, even on a subconscious level, I feel like I should be achieving, results quickly, or I should be constantly praised for things. A great example of this is that when I graduated in May 2022, I didn't get my first post-grad job until like 4 to 5 months after. And it was just weird because I got so many rejections, but for some reason I felt like I was entitled to get a job. And it's really dangerous because it makes you it takes you away from the moment, and it also makes you not grateful for things, when in reality, whether you're an educator or not, whatever degree you have, whatever school you went to, doesn't matter how young you are when you got these like great milestones, you should continue to be humble and grateful for what you do have. I'm grateful that I do have a post-grad job, but even after that, you know, moving to LA post-grad, like even with this YouTube channel, for example, I feel like, oh, I should definitely have like 10,000 subscribers at this point. I should definitely do this, blah, 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 because I've already had other achievements at a young age. But in reality, no, man, like you gotta work for that, you know what I mean? Like you still have to work. Just because you achieved like great success at a young age doesn't mean that the working hard is over. The next point that connects to it is that you rely on constant external validation. Think about in high school or college where, you know, if you would constantly get praised for doing well in class, or you would get A's or A pluses and good grades, or like your friends or students would praise you for being smart or whatever. When you're in the post-grad life and you lack that academic structure and there's nobody who is looking at you, pushing you to do your best, it can get very difficult when you're by yourself. For self-explanatory reasons, this is bad because then you are relying only on somebody else's viewpoint to fuel your actions, when in reality, you need to have some sort of intrinsic motivation to keep on going daily. Also, for each point, I want to talk about what I'm doing to combat this. So for the first one, to combat my feelings of privilege and entitlement, is I always remember my roots, and like I journal and I meditate and I reflect on where I came from, you know, my humble beginnings or whatever. And it really does ground me and remind me like, hey, Arnold, you know, nothing in this world is going to be handed to you, and you're not going to deserve any of this. It's only because of, you know, the grace of God and the grace of the world and the kindness of other people that you are here where you are today. And in terms of not relying on external validation, I've been doing a lot of, you know, self-motivation. Of course, it's healthy to talk to other people and get feedback from them and, you know, gas each other up a little bit and keep each other accountable. But at the end of the day, I think establishing really good habits out of discipline is the way to go, such that you can accomplish tasks without needing motivation necessarily, but, you know, relying on the discipline that you've cultivated for a period of time. Another thing is that it causes burnout when you're older. The best way I can describe this is like, oh shoot, like I worked really hard in high school and in college. You're telling me that I still have to work hard in my 20s and post-grad, and the reality is, yes, you have to. I mean, I just turned 24 and I'm realizing like, Arnold, like you know, your life isn't over after elementary school and middle school, high school, college. You know, your life, if anything, is just starting. What I think happens is that you set very high expectations for yourself of, you know, like I remember the days in high school where I would wake up at like 6 a.m. every day, go to school, come back at like 5 p.m. and then, you know, sleep like extremely late, preparing for AP exams, and on the weekends, like working part-time. You know, I set a very high standard for myself, which over time, if you don't fine tune it to make it more sustainable for yourself, you know, it'll cause you to burn out, because I think it goes back to the privilege and entitlement too, where you're like, oh, I've already worked so hard in my life. Why do I have to continue to work hard in my 20s? So I'm definitely a huge fan of sustainably working hard towards your long-term goals. Of course, there are going to be periods of imbalances, but the reason why you establish these sustainable habits to working hard is acknowledging that, hey, life is going to be crazy. There are going to be time periods where I have to work really hard. And, you know, at the end of the day, let me have at least some basis of structure where I'm not going to beat myself up over the fact that I don't do blah, 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 blah. I'm saying a lot of shit. To an extent, I think there's also a fear of not being able to outdo yourself, or I think there's a lot of like overthinking and overanalyzing. And what I'm doing to combat this is just reminding myself again, hey man, you're still young, you're in your early 20s. Just sustainably work hard towards your goals, because guess what? You're not on a time limit. This is proof that, hey, you're 24, you're still alive, you're not on a time limit, you know. It's not like there's like the end of a semester or an end of a year. So why not just do this for the long haul? Remember the bigger picture, the bigger vision of what you want, and just, you know, do the things that you love intentionally every day. The next thing is open-ended structure can be very difficult. If you're an overachiever and you go to these top schools or whatever, you know, there's a huge emphasis on academic structure, whether it's classes, exams, extracurriculars, or whatever. And as for me personally, I guess, I think I did really well with being forced to thrive in an academic environment. And so I'm able to then use that structure to my advantage by just going the extra mile slightly with the parameters that are given to me by a professor. But now that I'm in post-grad, it's like, oh shoot, like what do I do? Nobody's like instructing me with any rules, you know, where is my limit? You know, what are my parameters? So it's really, really hard to make that structure for yourself. But what I'm doing to combat it is, lately I've actually been implementing that structure to me myself. For example, I remember I looked at some of my my like weekly schedules when I was a senior, and I saw, oh, I did class in the morning here, I did this extracurricular here. Okay, so now in the real life, I am time blocking intentionally for myself. Okay, 9 to 5 is work, but now on like Mondays and Fridays, I'm gonna write. On Wednesdays, I'm gonna try to make a YouTube video. I've been struggling with that a lot, but you know, it's just about trying to implement some of that structure back into your life intentionally. Another very important and I think often overlooked one is you expect progress to be linear. This comes from the fact that, you graduate from middle school to high school and then to college, and maybe you rise above the ranks by, doing well in a certain class that allows you to get to another class, or you get an award that gives you another award, which allows you to go to a festival or whatever, you know what I mean? There's sort of like a linear scaling in college where, okay, as long as you take this level 1 class, you can then go to the level 2 class. But in real life, what I'm starting to realize is, this is not always the case. Progress isn't always linear. So what I've been doing to combat this is essentially reminding myself that there's so many people who didn't come from formal academic backgrounds, like, Mark Zuckerberg quit Harvard and now he's, But of course you shouldn't use an exception to disprove a rule, but it's still good to remember that, hey, after college, you're still alive, you're still surviving, hopefully. And there's so many different ways to success and everyone has a different, unique journey. So just reminding myself of that. The next thing is that it could be very lonely sometimes, especially if you're fixated on your goals, because, if you're an overachiever, if you're able to still have those same habits of working really hard, you tend to focus a lot on your goals and, ignore like your family and friends and other important aspects to your life. This might even hurt some relationships that you have. And of course, I'm not here to like spill all the tea on my life, but generally speaking, I think I did a good job at maintaining relationships. I have my lovely partner, my lovely brother and siblings and parents and a lot of great friends here. But there are definitely times where I feel like, oh no, I have to continue to work. I have to continue to work on this project or like write this or do that, and just like focus on things that matter to me selfishly, that I forget to, foster and nurture the relationships that, ultimately make me who I am. Because it's gonna be cliche, but something that I'm doing to combat this is reminding myself that, once I do achieve all the success that I want, is there any point in all that if I'm lonely, if I don't have anyone else to share it with? So just, reminding myself of that. On the topic of goals, sometimes the goals that you have can become very obsessive, and it prevents you from enjoying the little things in life. For example, post-grad, there's a good period of time where I would wake up and I would just immediately hop to my laptop and work, when in reality, I think it's important to like maybe take a deep breath, pray and meditate, or whatever you do, go outside, have some forward motion by walking outside in the beautiful LA sun over here, which is a privilege that I have, and just, resetting your day and, being grateful for the fact that you can breathe in healthy, fresh air for the most part, and, look at the trees, walk your dog, because there's so many little things that, that essentially make up your life. Your life is an accumulation of all these micro moments, and there are also many people in other parts of the world who don't even have the privileges that you have. The last point, and I feel like it had to get brought up somehow, is imposter syndrome, or in general feelings that you are not good enough or that you're not doing enough. And I just want to tell you not to be all hippy dippy or whatever. You are enough, you are doing enough, you're doing really well. But it's also important to recognize, when you could optimize, your time better, and instead of just working harder, you could work smarter. Because I tend to have this misconception that, I just need more time to achieve my goals. But in reality, sometimes you don't really need more time. You just need a lot more intentional and focused time on your goals. Set your priorities straight. Are you wasting a lot of time, just responding to emails and like scrolling around, on the TikTok, on the Instagrams? So for overachievers, even though objectively you have a lot of achievements, you tend to feel like you're not doing enough, and it can be very suffocating sometimes. And somebody that I actually really look up to for this point is David Goggins. He talks about this thing called the cookie jar, where whenever you're stressed out or you feel like you're losing or not doing enough, grab a cookie in your cookie jar, and that is essentially an achievement or something you've done in the past that helps prove to you, okay, I was able to do something great. For example, if I feel like I'm not enough, I go to my cookie jar and I realize, oh, in middle school, I won that recorder competition. Maybe I am musically gifted. I mean, that was a horrible example, but you get what I mean. Sorry that my video is haphazard. My phone is wonky because I have so much storage and I have to constantly like clear it out, restart my phone, and re-record. But thank you. Y'all probably taper it off anyways. You know what I'm gonna say, so I'll see you in the next one.